All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Bernard Hopkins absolutely ripping Errol Spence Jr., Gervonta Davis over their relationship with Al Haymon by inference. Let's talk about what he had to say in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. In this video, we're going to talk about a subject in boxing that has been going around for a while, and Bernard Hopkins pretty much epitomizing it in an interview that he just gave to FightNews.com. Read the interview and was like, wow, Bernard Hopkins is a wild, wild boy. Absolutely rips into Al Haymon fighters, clearly talking about Errol Spence Jr., talking about Gervonta Tank Davis, and essentially calling them fools and ignorant for listening to and falling victim to Al Haymon's schemes. Before I get into that, though, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, thank you for checking the channel out. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. If you are a longtime subscriber or supporter to the channel, thank you so much for your continued support. All right, so let's get into this, man. It's not something I'm particularly happy about talking about because I've been a Bernard Hopkins fan for a long time. Excellent Hall of Fame fighter, one of the best middleweights that I've ever seen in my life. I don't typically do the all-time great conversation if I can avoid it, because boxing's been around for several hundred years, and there's only been really tapes on people and videos on people for the last, what is like this, maybe the last 70 years, something like that. Pretty much since the 1940s, 50s was where you really started getting it. But man, really, 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 really excellent fighter, Hall of Fame fighter, just got inducted to the Hall of Fame. But there is the non-boxing side of Bernard Hopkins, which I have to admit gets on my nerves. And in this particular instance, he's playing the promoter for Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions, and talking about Errol Spence Jr., Errol Spence Jr., Gervonta Davis, probably Jamal Charlo as well, and some of the big fights that are not happening in boxing, and pretty much saying that the reason, or implying, at least this is what I get out of the interview, that he is saying that, Al Haymon is really the guy that is behind this, that is preventing these fights from really from these big fights from taking place. Says that, that he has fighters hiding out and not fighting other people, and, playing fugitive, from the law until Al Haymon, comes and gets them and allows them to make a fight, turns them in and say it's due process, kind of a convoluted analogy. But for the most part, what he's saying is that there's these big fights out there. Al Haymon does not is making these fighters and convincing his fighters not to take them, hiding them. And then, whenever he wants to make one, then he'll come out and say, okay, let's make this fight. Now, two reasons. Oh, and call these guys fools and ignorant, right? Look, man, Bernard Hopkins to me, man, is just it's a wild guy, man. This guy is literally 2 times in a row been on the side of people that typically do not make big fights against guys that would tend to actually make the big fights. Now, the first example for me is this dude just stepping out way out on the edge on Don King, and talking about how he was the one to finally drive Don King out of boxing, and what a great thing it was for him to be the one that put to beat the very last Don King fighter and put a nail in the coffin of Don King, right? Said how much he helped Bob Arum and how much he helped HBO by getting rid of Don King. Now, that issue aside, the fact that, when Don King, you can say what you want about Don King and fighters, and whether he paid fighters their money and all of those type of things that went on, you cannot deny Don King is pretty much the epitome of the guy, is the guy that made the best fight cards, made the biggest fights, made exciting fights consistently. We did not have the problems of there not being big fights when Don King was fighting. I mean, when Don King was the biggest promoter out there. Fighters may have had problems getting their money, but boxing fans did not have a problem getting big fights and fights that they want to see with Don King. It's been only after Don King left that a lot of this stuff with these in-house fights and Matchroom, well, you can say Matchroom pretty much fighting all in-house fights, Top Rank fighting all 99% in-house fights. PBC does have a lot of inside fights. It's pretty much after Don King that took place. Now, as far as Al Haymon, to put that on Al Haymon, when Golden Boy Promotions literally has their key fighters fighting absolutely nobody, how can you possibly say that who's a bigger fool? Errol Spence Jr., who literally is fighting for every belt and fighting the top guys in those divisions to get them, with the exception of trying to make the Terence Crawford fight, or Jaime Munguia, who's been at 154 pounds, fought nobody, moved up to 160, got an offer from the PBC to make a fight, and Golden Boy Promotions tells them no, it has to be some joint thing. Gervonta Davis tried multiple times to fight Ryan Garcia, which would probably be a bloody mismatch, but they Golden Boy are the ones saying, no, we have to do some big complicated joint pay-per-view for Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. I just find it real interesting, man, how all this stuff about how the PBC is really the culprit in boxing, preventing fights from getting made. Now, I'm not going to say that I don't believe that there is some truth to the fact that the PBC may or may not want certain fights. I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. I've said multiple times, as far as the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight goes, that Errol Spence Jr. wants that fight. That does not necessarily mean that the PBC, Al Haymon and the PBC, really want that fight. I can't say if they do, if they don't. There's a lot of just basic business basic economics about that tells me they may be hesitant about doing that, because if Terence Crawford wins that fight and Terence Crawford's not signed to them, Terence Crawford takes all those belts and goes wherever he wants and leaves the PBC high and dry. Right? So people typically, the way that boxing works, and as network centric as it is, and as important as these titles seem to be to the networks, yeah, that could definitely be something that can make them think twice. Or how about the more realistic thing, or the more clear thing, which is that Terence Crawford doesn't do big numbers. And Terence Crawford is probably going to want a lot of money for a fight that he thinks is going to do a lot of money. But they say, man, it may not be the case, right? But just to be like this, to call other fighters fools and ignorant because they listen to Al Haymon, when Golden Boy Promotions has literally done nothing for any of the fighters that are with them, have no big fights, no anything over there, and the one guy that they did have, they basically took on a European tour, and then he left them, and they maintained that same European tour, blocking a whole lot of fights from taking place with guys in the PBC, specifically Demetrius Andrade, David Benavidez, and Jamal Charlo. Not to mention that they didn't even make the fight with Canelo Alvarez for Undisputed, and he was right there. So anyway, man, I just had to vent my frustration about Bernard Hopkins, man. That dude is just a wild dude, man, saying that stuff, man. Don't know if he really believes it or not, but I'm starting to think, and maybe some of the stuff that they say about that dude out of Philadelphia, I might start having to agree with. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.